We're looking at God Cares, Part 3, and this is a smaller edition, but we have established that God cares, and He wants the best for all of mankind. How have we have established it? Why, we've read it in His Word. Bob, why don't you read 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7 for us?
Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you.
All right, so when we last left our anti-hero, Cain, God gave him a break, a serious break, and allowed him to live. Now we're going to see that God is going to stick with the line of Cain for some reason. This is totally out of the norm, but I think it's going to help us to understand why the condition of the earth got worse and worse to the point where there was nobody except Adam left. Who not Adam, but Noah, who was standing for the one true God. So Genesis 4:17, we read, Cain knew his wife, she conceived, bare Enoch, and he built a city, or he and Cain were building the city. And they called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. First city. Who built it? Cain. The land wouldn't yield much for him, remember? So he had to eat. In verse 18, and unto Enoch was born Irad, and he begot Lamech. And Lamech means powerful. He actually is in the seventh in line in Cain's line. Now look, we're looking at Cain's line. Cain was not a very good role model, should we say? Okay, there's going to be nothing here that's going to be godly. We're dealing with selfish men only about themselves. So this is going to get, there's going to be a reason why God puts all of this together. All right, so verse 19, Lamech took unto him two wives. The first recorded bigamist, going against what God had initiated in the Garden of Eden, right? God had Adam and Eve, one man and one woman, and now we've got Lamech who's going to take two wives and change the things that God has done. And Adal bare Jabal, and Jabal was the father, and father here is chief, head, not necessarily the inventor of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. They were nomads. Now, I got Adar was the head of Cain's line. It should be Jabal there. She's the mother. So, maybe the mother was in charge, but I put Jabal in there. Jabal was the head of Cain's line who lived in tents and raised livestock. So, what do you need livestock for? Well, we'll see here in a moment. 21, and by the way, his brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father or chief of all such that handle the harp and organ, the flute or mouth organ, which is the panpipe. So music. We've got cattle, now we got music. And Jubal means joyful sound. The first recorded musicians, we knew are the Rolling Stones. Oh, wait a minute. Cain's relatives from the unbelievers line. And verse 22, and Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, which means flowing from Cain. And he was an instructor, a sharpener, a very artificer in brass, bronze or copper, and iron. He was a metal worker. Now, when you think about what you would do with something like this, 22, the New International Version says, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Being a metal worker, a sharpener of tools, you would need tools for building and working the earth, right, for farming. At first I immediately went to weapons of war, but I don't think that that's the bigger reason. He needed metal to be able to start and control fire. Okay, that was a much better reason to have metal around, was to be able to control fire. 22, the rest of this verse says, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Now, why is this thrown in? Well, because she's the missing piece. Naamah means pleasant or beautiful. Why is a woman of beauty just casually mentioned here? All right. 23. Lamech, the first bigamist, said to his wives, hear my voice, you wives of me. Lamech, listen to what I have to say. I've killed a man for wounding me, a young man for just striking me. He struck me, so I killed him. If Cain's revenge is sevenfold, then Lamech's is 70 sevenfold. He's boasting. He's boasting, is what he's doing. Yeah, okay, Cain's still around. Cain got, some things that were thrown on him, but he's still living. And he's going, hey, if that was bad, look what I just did. Why is Cain's unbelieving line even mentioned? With the believers' lines, dates of children and ages are given. None of the particulars are given about with Cain's line. Not even of their deaths, except here. Lamech seems to think he had done some pretty evil things, 10 times that of Cain. Is this the record of the unbeliever's line setting up a counterfeit sacrifice to lead others astray from the right teaching of the coming Messiah? This would help in infecting the earth against what the true God had proposed. Come, follow us to our sacrifice. Next Tuesday, sacrifice. We've got everything you need, right? We've got animals. We've got music. We've got women. We've got fire. We got everything you need. Come to our sacrifice. What started Cain's road to earthly problems? A sacrifice, right? He was not he did not show up with the right, the proper sacrifice. So why don't we just go ahead and set up our own then? We've got the things we need: animals, music, fire, pretty woman. Sounds like a sacrifice to me. You could ask Aaron. Well, let's go there. Exodus 32. Exodus 32, verse 1, English Standard Version. This is the golden calf incident. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, man, these guys were just looking for an opportunity. The people gathered themselves up together to Aaron and said, you, Aaron, get over here. Make us gods who'll go before us. This Moses guy, he disappeared. The man that brought us out of the land of Egypt. We don't know what happened to him. So now we're going to set up our own counterfeit sacrifice. Our own idolatry, our own golden calf. Excuse me. Bob, read 2 through 5.
So Aaron said to them, take off the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord.
Aaron, Moses' brother, declares a feast. The Lord didn't declare the feast. Aaron decided we're going to have a feast. All right, we're going to build a golden calf and we're going to have a feast. He even builds an altar to offer sacrifices from. Fire and animals for the burnt offering on an altar that had an idol, golden calf on it. Verse 6, they rose up early the next day. They offered sacrifices, burnt offering, peace offerings. And then the people sat down to eat and drink, and they rose up to play. What do you think they were doing when they rose up to play? What kind of play do idolatrous people participate in? I really don't think they're playing Parcheesi. Meanwhile, on Mount Sinai, Moses and God were trying to get something godly accomplished in order to help God's people by providing a law that would lead him to the knowledge of the true God. Verse 7, Bob.
And the Lord said to Moses, go down, for your people, whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. The Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now, therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them. and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation of you.
One could say that God was not very happy. He was willing to just destroy them all, and he'll start over again just with Moses. It's going to take Moses interceding on behalf of the children of Israel to keep them alive and have God continue to lead them. Verse 11.
But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, with evil intent did he bring them out, to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger and relent from this disaster against your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your offering as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever. The Lord relented from the disaster that he had spoken of bringing upon his people.
That's a good thing. I mean, the Lord was going to bring a disaster upon those people. That's not good. God knew what was going on, but Moses hadn't seen it with his own eyes yet. But he's about to. Verse 15.
Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of testimony in his hand, tablets that were written on both sides, on the front and on the back they were written. The tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. But he said, it is not the sound of shouting for victory, or the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing that I hear. And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing.
So we got music, singing, and dancing. And it sounded like war to Joshua. But it sure wasn't music of praise and worship for the one true God, was it? No. Okay. Bob, I'm going to have you continue to read.
And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf that they had made and burned it with fire and ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the people of Israel to drink it. And Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you have brought such a great sin upon them? And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people, they are set on evil. For they said to me, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So I said to them, let any who have gold take it off. So they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. And when Moses saw that the people had broken loose, for Aaron had let them break loose to the derision of their enemies.
Broken loose, as in from one's clothes. The King James Version just said they were naked. They'd already broken loose down to being naked. But broken loose is is what the Hebrew words mean. But they're broken loose from their clothes. Moses, though, now wants to find out if there is any who still wanted to worship Jehovah, the true God, who had been, brought them out of Egypt. So he's like, okay, that's not good. Is there anybody on God's side? Verse 26, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. And he said unto them, thus says the Lord God of Israel, put your sword on your side, each of you. Go to and fro from the camp, from gate to gate throughout the camp. Each of you kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And that day, about 3,000 men of the people fell. And Moses said, today you have been ordained for the service of the Lord, each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, so that you might bestow a blessing upon you this day. So this is how the tribe of Levi became the Lord's personal ministers. The day the law was introduced, about 3,000 of Israel died. Right? Moses came down with the law. He had the 10 commandments. They're written on both sides by God's hand. And he threw them down. The day the Spirit was introduced, about 3,000 were granted eternal life. About 3,000 of Israel died. Acts 2:41, Bob.
So then, those who accepted his word were baptized in the name of Jesus Christ, and there were added to them in that day about 3,000 souls.
And 2 Corinthians 3:6 lays it out for us, who also made us competent to be ministers of the new covenant, not of the letter, not of the law, but of the Spirit. In fact, the letter kills. The day the letter was introduced, about 3,000 died. But the day the Spirit was introduced, it gave life to about 3,000. The letter or the law kills, but the Spirit brings life. Exodus 32.
The next day, Moses said to the people, "You have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin." And so Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Alas, this people hath sinned a great sin, and they have made for themselves gods of gold. But now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written." But the Lord said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. But now go, lead the people to the place about which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel, not God, shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them." And the Lord sent a plague on the people because they made a calf, the one that Aaron made.
And then we move into chapter 33. And the Lord said to Moses, "Depart, go up from here, you and the people whom you have." I always get a kick out of this because they're always arguing on whose people they are. "Depart, go up from here, you and the people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, to the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your offspring I will give it. I will send an angel before you, and I'll drive out all the ites. Go up to the land flowing with milk and honey." But I'm not going. God said, "I've had it with this people. I will not go up among you, unless I consume you. I'm going to get so mad, I'm just going to burn you all up on the way. So I'm not going." All right? You stiff-necked people. And when the people heard this disastrous word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. God was refusing to accompany his people into the promised land. We are at a time of serious crisis, but Moses kept at it. Verses 5 to 10.
For the Lord had said to Moses, "Say to the people of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. If for a single moment I should go up among you, I would consume you. So now take off your ornaments, that I may know what to do with you." Therefore the people of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Horeb onward. Now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his tent door.
Moses is standing in the gap. He's doing the best he can, making intercession on behalf of the children of Israel. Let's continue reading in verse 11.
Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again into the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now, therefore, If I have found favor in your sight, please show me now your ways, that I may know you in order to find favor in your sight. Consider, too, that this nation is your people.
Boy, serious politicking going on here, serious begging, serious intercession. Verse 14, and he said, "Oh, my presence will go with you. I'll give you rest." And he said to him, "If your presence will not go with me, don't bring me. I ain't going up there without you. I don't want all these people. Uh, for how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not in your going with us, so that we are distinct, I and your people, from every other people on the face of the earth?" And the Lord said to Moses, "This very thing that you have spoken, I will do, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." And we would love to say, and they lived happily ever after, but you keep reading, we know that's not what happened. But you can see God gave, Moses interceded, and the children of Israel were able to come back into favor. Where in Cain's line, all of that, there wasn't anybody. It's Cain's line, it's the unbeliever line. And all it did was get worse and worse to the point where God just wiped them all off the face of the earth. So, with that in mind, we will continue next week with God caring. And it's amazing all the different ways he cares. So, God bless you.